The man who firebombed a Montreal synagogue says he was offered $15,000 to attack 3 different locations, but his story does not add up. And here is why. Alexa Lavoie for Rebel News, reporting from Congregation Bet Tikva, the synagogue that was firebombed in December 2024. The accused, Mohamed Ilyess Akodad, was arrested in April 2025 and has since pleaded guilty to firebombing the synagogue. The 20-year-old told the court that he had previously been involved in crimes such as car theft and shoplifting, including allegedly stealing hydrocodone. But he claimed he had never firebombed a building before. Akodad argued that the attack was driven by drug addiction, not antisemitism. But after hearing his testimony, I have serious questions about whether the full story is being told. The hearing began with a strong focus on mitigating factors. His lawyer, Nazar Saati, described the psychological impact of allegedly being bullied at school, growing up with an absent father, reportedly suffering from depression, and what the defense characterized as harsh detention conditions. But what about simply not committing the crime in the first place? More importantly, several parts of Akodad's testimony appear contradictory. In my opinion, his version of events seems carefully crafted to minimize 3 key aggravating factors: premeditation, the risk of bodily harm, and the possibility that this was hate-motivated crime. Akodad testified that on the day of the attack, he was hanging out with friends in Mont-Royal, where they were consuming drugs. Later that evening, another friend allegedly brought him to what he described as a chilling spot, an Airbnb where several people were partying. He refused to reveal the location. According to Akodad, he overheard strangers discussing what they called a mission. Eventually, they allegedly invited him into the conversation because he seemed interested. Those unidentified individuals supposedly offered him $15,000 to carry out what they called a barbecue, meaning he was to burn 3 targets. According to his testimony, those targets were a SUV, which was never attacked, the CJA building, and Congregation Bet Tikva. Akodad insisted he did not know either building was connected to the Jewish community. But both buildings are visibly Jewish. At Bet Tikva, there is a menorah, Hebrew lettering, and signage explicitly mentioning Jews. The CJA building also displays a prominent Star of David intertwined with a heart. That matters. According to Akodad, however, it was dark and he simply was not paying attention to the building he was targeting. If the judge accepts that explanation, the hate-motivated nature of the offense may not be treated as an aggravating factor at sentencing. Akodad said the deal was finalized over FaceTime with an unidentified man who wanted the attack carried out immediately. He also claimed he was high on drugs. According to his testimony, he had smoked 4 or 5 joints and consumed roughly 2 ounces of hydrocodone mixed with juice at the party. Earlier that afternoon, he said he had already consumed another cup of the same mixture in the park. Think about that for a second. We are supposed to believe that an unidentified man offered $15,000 to a complete stranger who was supposedly heavily intoxicated and trusted him to successfully firebomb 3 different locations that same night. Does that sound credible? Akodad testified that the driver then picked him up with everything needed for the attacks, including gasoline, a hammer, and other materials. He said he was highly stressed. But this is where the story becomes even more harder to follow. Throughout his testimony, Akodad repeatedly suggested he was too intoxicated to ask basic questions about the targets or even notice what kind of buildings he was attacking. Yet, at the same time, he claimed he carefully checked each location for lights or people because he did not want anyone to get hurt. So, he is too intoxicated to understand which kind of building he was targeting, but alert enough to assess whether people were inside. This matters because it could affect another aggravating factor, whether he knowingly created a serious risk of bodily harm. According to Akodad, the first target was the CJA building that is just over there. He testified that the driver dropped him off about 2 houses away and that he walked to the entrance. He said he smashed a window but panicked before setting the building on fire. He then ran back to the vehicle and lied to the driver, claiming the attack had been completed, but that he could not take a picture because he believed he saw someone and he was scared that this person had called the police. According to Akodad, the driver believed him. They then drove for about 10 minutes before reaching the second target. But there is a major problem with that story. The CJA building is literally across the street from Congregation Bet Tikva. Akodad claimed he only learned recently that the 2 buildings were beside each other. But think about it. Why would a driver who believed the first building had just been firebombed and that police may already have been called, return 10 minutes later to attack the building directly across the streets? Wouldn't he expect police, firefighters, or witnesses to already be there? Akodad said he was dropped off near the synagogue and walked along the right side of the building to reach the front door. Again, I didn't see the report, so I cannot tell you if it's that side or that side. It depends on how you see the building side. But the investigators reportedly found a shoe print matching his Versace shoes on the right side of the building. But during the cross-examination, he also claimed the driver parked somewhere he could actually watch the explosion, which is why he could not lie a second time. Those 2 claims don't fit together. From the side of the building, as you can see there and there, the driver would not have had a clear view of the entrance or the fire. So either Akodad is mistaken about where the vehicle was parked, or the driver was actually positioned near the front of the synagogue, or there never was a driver. And if the driver was near the front or on somewhere on this side of the building, he probably saw that the CJA building across the street had never been set on fire, exposing Akodad's first lie. Again, more questions than answers. Akodad also testified that he checked for lights and occupants before carrying out the attack. Yet he still claims he never realized he was targeting a Jewish institution. As you can see, Bet Tikva entrance is well lit at night. The signage clearly identifies it as a congregation, and the word Jews is visible. So we are supposed to believe he carefully inspected the building for occupants, but somehow failed to notice what kind of institution he was about to burn? Maybe it's true, and maybe it's not, but I remain extremely skeptical. Akodad testified that he smashed a window with a hammer before pouring gasoline on the wooden entrance door as allegedly instructed by the driver. He also said he poured gasoline inside the building before using a brown paper to ignite the fire. According to Akodad, the flames suddenly erupted, nearly burning him. He initially ran away, but then, despite the panic, he remembered he needed a photograph as proof to get paid. He also realized he had dropped the cell phone provided by the driver and left some equipment behind, forcing him to return. Compare that to the first location. At CJA, he claimed he panicked so badly he could not even take a photograph. But minutes later, after nearly setting himself on fire at Bet Tikva, he suddenly remembered the phone, returned to the scene, and took the picture. That deserves closer scrutiny. Akodad testified that the driver eventually dropped him off at home. So I'm one of the side of the building, as you can see. Impossible to see any fire or explosion if it's happening in the front. I'm going to go to the other side and show you how it's not visible. So I'm on the other side of the building, and as you can see, there is no visibility to see either if there were fire or an explosion. And as I told you, the other side of the street, the CJA, is literally visible, so the driver will have seen that this building wasn't firebombed. Throughout the hearing, he repeatedly expressed remorse and described the attack as a terrible mistake. Yet, he continues to withhold some of the most important information. He refuses to identify the Airbnb where he allegedly met the people behind the attack. He refuses to identify the friend who brought him there. He refuses to identify the vehicle used. He refuses to reveal where he allegedly collected the $2,500 the following day. He even claims he probably will not recognize the man who hired him. How convenient! Nearly every detail that could identify the alleged organizers has somehow disappeared. Yet, we are also being asked to believe he is fully remorseful, wants to cooperate, and hopes to compensate the Jewish community. The defense is seeking a suspended sentence that will include 4 months of house arrest, along with conditions, including repayment of roughly $7,000 in damages. The Crown is asking for 24 months in jail. In my opinion, even that is not enough. In my opinion, the defense is trying to persuade the judge that Akodad was not motivated by anti-Semitism, but was simply a drug-addicted young man manipulated by unidentified individuals. The problem is that his testimony contains too many contradictions, and the unanswered questions are not minor. They go to the heart of this case. Who planned the attack? Who financed it, if it's true? Why these Jewish institutions were chosen? And whether others remain involved? We will find out what the judge believes on September 10, when she delivers her decision. I will be there and I will give you an update. Enough is enough. If you are here in Canada and you are not a citizen, but you are involved in committing crimes, hate speech, or involved in those hateful marches, you should be deported back home, not here. So go and sign the petition if you agree with that at deporthamas.com right now.